So it's almost 2 a.m. and I was sitting in my inner space, and there was a clear realization. There was a clear seeing, better said, related to something. And I was seeing pieces of this thing since years ago, but it's like a puzzle. It's like some pieces came some years back and I was seeing them, but with not so much clarity. It's like the puzzle was blurred. But now a certain piece started to appear more clear. So it's about like, oh my god, where do I pick it up? Because where do I pick it up to start explaining it? Because it's about a thing. Jesus Christ, man! Where do I start it? It's about how it ties up to words, how we speak and why we speak. Why? What does it mean to speak something? It ties up to perception, how perception works, and how we influence our perception with our words, with our manners, and how we speak and how we conduct ourselves in the world. It ties up with will and the power of manifestation. So, okay, so it's like this. The skill to correctly identify and name the experiences that happen to us. Creates the difference between a true perception over things or a distorted perception over things. And I know I haven't said anything basically new, but I'm trying to tackle it. So I'm trying to start from a certain point and then to unravel it. So the next thing would be saying that the difference between a life, an experience of life that feels aligned, that feels genuine, that feels real, that feels true, and a life, an experience of life that feels frictionated, that feels tension, that feels stress, that feels suffering, is the ability to correctly identify and name the things that we observe. I know how simple this sounds, but it only sounds simple, and in a way it is, but now not in the most immediate way of thinking about it. So what we currently have as an experience of life right now is a misidentification of how things are. We think we are seeing the world the way the world is, but we are actually mis-seeing it. We are actually, it's like looking at a tree and thinking it is a frog, or looking at a sky and thinking it is a I don't know, a meadow. It's like the the things and the name of things and the correct name of things have been mismatched. So we are looking, for example, I'm looking at a tree, but I'm in my mind looks at a tree, but instead of naming it a tree, it names it, let's say, a fox, and it tries to convince itself that that is a fox. And because of this property, there is suffering, because a fox will never be a tree. So it's like, okay, how do I put this? It's like you would have, it's like the human being would have two main layers to it. Like the experience of life would be composed of two main layers that work only together. It's like you'd have a computer. In order to work, it has a layer of hardware and a layer of software. Now, the hardware and the software need to work together perfectly. If there is any virus, let's say, perturbing the proper functioning of these two entities, the hardware and the software, then the computer will not run properly. Because if the software starts, for example, working in a faulty way, you might try to achieve something and, for example, move files or do things with on the laptop, and the software itself might not be connected to the proper operations in the hardware, and the operations will not work, the operations that you're trying to make. Similarly, if the hardware is broken, then the software could be okay, but if the hardware is broken, then even if the software is okay, you cannot do the operations that you want to do. So both of the software and the hardware, need to work together perfectly in the perfect design, in the way they are designed to work, in order for you to be able to actually use the laptop for something and put it to use. But if any of these two entities are start working incorrectly for whatever reason, or start working in disjointed from one another, if the hardware starts being disjointed from the software, then there is no connection between the hardware and the software. You almost have an inoperable computer. Similarly, reality is made up of hardware and software. The hardware is the true reality, is whatever it is here and now in front of our eyes. The software is how we interpret that reality, is what we think we are seeing. Now, in the correct version of reality, the hardware and the software of reality are working together in perfect harmony as one. So whatever we are thinking we are seeing, it's actually in direct alignment with what is actually there. Now, in an unnatural version of reality, the hardware and software of reality starts being disjointed from one another, and what we are thinking we are seeing doesn't match anymore what's there. Now, what's there never changes. The hardware is the same. It's similar to a computer, like the hardware is the same, but the softwares can be many. You can have many versions of Windows, let's say, that you can install using the same hardware. The hardware doesn't change. It's only the software that can change. The software can be damaged in most cases or not. but in most cases the softwares can be changed, altered, virused, but the hardware remains the same. So this is how I see things happening in this reality here. It's like the hardware of reality is still in place. It's still that true reality which is here. But the software that interprets that reality and translates that reality for our brain has been, something happened to it. The software is not working properly at this moment. We are seeing things, we are thinking we are seeing things, but we are seeing them in the incorrect way. We are looking at something that is there, the hardware of reality. For example, we are looking at a tree, but our mind, the software, thinks it sees a fox and it translates a fox. That's software that is not working properly. It doesn't translate reality properly. This is the difference between the things and the name of things. To be able to have the correct name of things means to have a correct software that is properly and correctly translating reality. This is where the idea of names and symbols come in. Because what is a name? What is a symbol? It's a representation of reality. It's a software. It's the software that allows for us to translate the reality of the hardware and the activity of the hardware. Because, for example, in a laptop, if we wouldn't have any software, there would still be electricity going on in the circuits. There would still be mathematical operations perhaps happening in the circuits and logical decisions and all of this. But all that activity of the hardware that exists in the circuits, we will not be able to see it because it would be in this case. And we are not able to see the micro operations that happen at the level of the circuits. But if we have a software attached to the hardware, then those micro operations are displayed on a display, and we can understand that those micro operations, those logical decisions that the hardware takes and all that activity of the hardware starts to have an appearance that we can work with through the display and through the software. And similar, the entire reality is here in front of our eyes, but it's like the hardware that is running all these micro operations, but without a software that can interpret those operations and can display them for our minds, we cannot perceive this hardware and the operations and the things that are going on inside of it. So we need a software that can translate for our mind the operations that are going on in the hardware. And this is one way in which, to continue a bit more before saying this, is that the software is symbols and words and meaning. This is the software. The software is just a way to translate what happens in the hardware of reality. Symbol and names are only a representation of reality. They are not reality, but they represent reality. This is what symbol is a way of understanding what happens in the actual reality. Now, in the correct version of reality, the hardware of reality and the software of reality are always permanently joined together and working in unison. Whatever happens in the hardware of reality is immediately understood through the software of reality, and the symbols and the names of things are in direct correlation with the things. So a horse that exists in the hardware, let's say, of reality, in the actual reality, is connected with its real name that faithfully represents it in the software of reality. So a horse that exists in the actual reality is faithfully represented by a name that fully translates and represents it, and in this case would be the name of horse. But in the unnatural version of reality, the software of reality is disconnected or distorted from what actually happens in the hardware of reality. And then the symbols do not match with the actualities anymore. A horse can be symbolized as a fox. And this is where the main in a way, the cosmic mistake or trauma comes from. It's from the things not matching the name of the things anymore. Or better said, the name of the things not matching the things anymore. And because we are running with a human system that contains a mind and a body, the body exists in the true natural reality of the hardware of reality, while the mind exists as the software of reality. So we are not only body and we are not only mind, we are mind and body together. And these two, the mind and the body, the hardware and the software, need to work together. But if the mind starts, let's say, being altered or distorted in a certain way, uh, and it starts incorrectly translating what happens in the body. The mind, which is the software of our body, of our human being, is incorrectly translating the reality, the physical reality, the true physical reality, which is already here, everywhere. So the mind is having a faulty translation of reality, and because our mind is translating the reality in a faulty way, what happens is that our body is suffering. Because if our mind, for example, if in the real reality that exists here in my face, it would be, let's say, a tree, but my mind sees, I don't know, let's say, mm, water, waterfall instead of a tree, it might try to go to the waterfall that it thinks it sees and it expects it to be there, and it wants to dip its hands, the body wants to dip its hands and, let's say, drink water or something, but it goes to the tree and it doesn't find water. So it doesn't understand what is happening because the body has an intuitive and instinctual knowledge of how things work, and it goes to a thing that it sees it exists in the natural version of reality, in the hardware version, but the mind says, okay, go there and drink water, and the body goes there and it's no water. So this is where the body starts being conflicted. Like, what the heck happens? I'm thirsty, and this is not water. And the mind doesn't know what happens either. And then it tries to figure out and try to come out with different explanations for why the tree doesn't pour out water out of it. And then it tries to figure out all these like theories and things which become, let's say, our known science, just to figure out why things don't work the way the mind, which is in a distorted version, sees them to be. Why things don't work the way the mind sees them to be. But things don't work because the software of the mind is currently incorrectly working, is broken. We are not operating with a mind that correctly sees things as they are in their, not in their real version, because the mind will never see things as they are in the hardware. The mind is the software. But the mind doesn't see things as they are correctly represented, or as they should be correctly represented in the true version of the software. So the software of reality is broken. The name of things have been mismatched. And this is where it seems clear that the myth of the Tower of Babel might have been the start of this virusing of the software of reality, in which the event that caused the name of things to be mismatched, the software of reality, the symbols and the names, stopped matching the true reality that happened in the hardware of reality. And that's the start of pain and suffering, because you're thirsty and you're going to ask water from a rock, let's say. You're seeing a sheep or a cow, and you're wanting to go and take milk, but it might be a wolf, and it might bite you, and it might kill you. You know, like if the software of reality doesn't translate reality the way it is, then it's chaos. It's chaos. You can go to a flower and it can kill you, because it was not a flower. Only in your mind it was a flower. In reality it was I don't know, lion. You know, it can kill you. Or similarly, you can view in your mind a monster, but in reality it's just a benign, I don't know, plant. You can see in your mind a wolf or a monster that is there to attack you, and in reality it could be just a rock, or I don't know, a treadmill, you know, like in the, what was the story of the Don Quixote, you know, when he was going there and trying to attack the treadmills, because he was thinking they are like warriors and trying to come after him. So the software of reality is broken. It does not translate the true operations and activities of the hardware of reality right now. And our body is suffering because of this. Now, there is a way in which to repair the software of reality, in my opinion, through the experiences that were experienced so far. It might have led me to this perhaps notion of a possible way to restore and repair this software. And I feel that this repairing starts from within us. It starts from acquire this level of inner silence and inner detachment from the contents of the mind, because the mind in its current state, it's a virus software. It doesn't work properly. It does not translate reality properly. So the first thing to do is to detach from the meanings and contents of the mind, this current version of the mind, this current version of the software. Detaching from this current virus version of the software, in my experience, what happens is that at first there seems to be nothing, because there is no software. If you detach from this current version of the software, well, because we are still in the physical body, there is this impression that, well, there is nothing happening, because there is no other software that immediately replaces it. So for the duration of shutting down this current software of the mind, at first it appears like there is only nothing happening, nothing at all. This is why in deep meditation there is nothing. In deep, let's say, in a deeper states of meditation, there is just pure, we call it pure being or pure nothingness. That's, in my opinion, that's not nothing. That's the hardware of reality still working and producing activities, but there is no software active that can interpret for us what happens in the hardware of reality. So for some time, it appears like there is nothing. And this is why I believe that this is why most in most philosophies or spiritual mediums and writings, it's said that this state of being is the nothing, or it's said, it's named as the nothing and everything, because intuitively people, when they go to that state of being, when they pause this software, this virus software of the mind, there is no software and they get to that nothing, because they don't have anything else that can start interpreting reality for them. So they are getting to that state of the hardware of reality in which there is everything, because all the hardware is there with all the activity, but because there is no software, it's perceived as nothing at all. So there is this apparently paradox of nothing and everything, because they feel there is everything there. Intuitively you can feel it's everything, it's not nothing, but with the mind it's nothing. So people call that state of being the nothing and everything, which is just the hardware of reality without a software that can interpret it. Because we are living in a physical body that requires a software. That's the catch here. Because we are still in a physical body, and our physical body requires a software. It requires a mental software that can translate the hardware. Because in my opinion, if we would be outside of the computer, we would be outside of the physical body, there would be no nothing and everything. There would be outside of the nothing and everything, let's say. Then there would be no need for the hardware nor the software. But as we are here in the hardware of reality, as we are here in the nothing and everything, we need a software to interpret it. Because the nothing and everything without the software is just nothing and everything, you know? It's just this state of pure being, but without means to operate with it. You can't do anything with it. You can just stay like that. You can stay like that in that state of being of nothing and everything, but you can't operate with it without a software. You need a software if you want to operate with the computer you are in, because we are inside the computer. This is the computer of life, right? It has the hardware, which is the nothing and everything, and it has the software, which is the meanings, which is the somethings, the map of somethings. So another analogy through which we this could be understood would be to say that the hardware and software of reality could be equated with the territory and the map. So the territory is the true reality that is here for us right here, right now, before our eyes, but we can't see it without a map. The map is the mental interface that helps our body move in the territory of reality. So the body is a physical entity, the vehicle, like a car, and the mind holds the maps of reality. And the body cannot move without the GPS, the GPS maps that are within the mind. So the mind needs the correct map to basically be able to guide the body in the territory of reality. A car cannot know which way to take, left or right or anything like that, if there is no map. There has to be a map of understanding in order to be able to surf reality. Because otherwise we're just staying like that. The car is not moving and we are just staying like that. No? In that state of nothing and everything, or beingness. Which is fine. It's fine. But in my opinion, I have this view currently. It might be wrong, so I'm not saying this is the ultimate truth or anything, but my current opinion is that if we are here in this computer, well, it's like being in a computer. Like life is outside of the computer. So if, like, my supposition is that if I find myself here in this computer that has a hardware and a software, then I might be here to do something similar to how you're doing things on a computer. You're using a computer to do things, right? To create operations, to, I don't know, calculate things, to do some task and finish your job and close the computer, right? Similar, if we would use a computer to play a game, we are there using the computer, playing the game in order to basically finish it at some point, right? So reality is outside of the computer. In my opinion, reality is outside of the nothing and everything. So if we are here in this software and this hardware, in this computer, I feel that there might be something to accomplish. Like we might have came here to do something. But in order to accomplish that, we need the correct software, because without a correct map of reality, without a correct software that can interpret the activities going on in the hardware, it's like a car. You have the car, you are there in reality on the road. You know you have to get somewhere, because this is why you went into the car for this is why one took a car, because it wanted to get somewhere, to get to a certain destination in the first place. So unless you have the map and you know how to drive let's say you know how to drive the car, you know where you need to go. Let's say, okay, I need to get to that city, but how do I get there? Let's say you don't know how to get there, you don't know the roads, you don't have a GPS, you've never been there, you have no one to talk to, you don't know where that city is, you just know, oh, okay, I need to get to the city, but that could be in any direction, south, north, east, west, like I have no idea how to get there. So of course you need a map to guide you. You need a correct map to guide you, because if you have a faulty map, it's just as good as not having a map. Because if that location is north and the faulty map says it's south, then it's just even worse. So I think the thing is that through meditation, what we can learn, what can be learned, I mean, is how to detach our awareness from this faulty software of our minds that is visibly not um, conducting us in a conducting is visibly not conducting our experience in a proper way, is visibly not translating reality in the proper way. And this is why there is so much nonsense and trauma and suffering in this world, because we came here in this, let's say, computer to achieve something, but without a proper map there is only frustration and suffering and not knowing how to debunk the system and what happens to be able to actually achieve that thing that we came here to do. Now, where learning how to still the mind helps, learning how to find that place of beingness helps, is because it creates a first level of detachment from this corrupted software. So in order to possibly be able to replace this corrupted software, first we need to detach from it. We need to stop using it. Because if we continue using this corrupted software, then that's it. We continue using it. But it's like reinstalling the Windows on a laptop. If that Windows has crashed and it's visibly not working, you just delete it and reinstall a new version of it, you know? And to delete it means to let it go, to let go of that corrupted version of Windows. So, learning and practicing, taking this practice very thoroughly and seriously of quieting the mind and stilling the mind, what it does is that it detaches our awareness from this corrupted software. And for some time, our awareness will be left in this suspended place of nothingness. And we need to become comfortable with that nothingness and actually learn to delve in it, to stay there in it. Because the nothingness that is only nothingness because there is no software in our minds translating for us reality is not actually, for our body, is not nothingness. Our body exists in the hardware. It's part of the hardware of reality. It's like the car that exists within the visible world, the physical world. So our body, even though for our minds, when we quiet everything, when we quiet our mind, even though it might appear that there is nothing for our minds, for our body is not nothing. For our body, there is a lot of activity happening with the rest of the reality which the body is part of, the hardware. The body is part of the hardware, and there is a lot of activity happening in the hardware of reality. Imagine that the entire software is nothing else but a translator device for the activities that happen in the hardware. So there is a lot of activity happening in the hardware of reality. Nothing, it's not nothing, it's everything. It's so much. So the body is having an active, is an active participant in all of that. Our body, the energies that pass through our body second by second, moment by moment. It's like our body is in a constant participation and involvement in all the activity of the natural reality of the hardware here. So when we quiet down our minds, for if we, our awareness can choose to go within our body. And if our awareness stays within that sensations of the body, or not even the sensations of the body, but just staying in the center of itself, even if for our minds that state would seem like nothing, our awareness will start to get cues from the true activities that happen within our body. And this is when we start observing and understanding things. Oh, we start observing energies, the energies that happen, that flow and move through our body, similar to like the electric energy that flows and moves through the circuits of a computer board on a hardware. This is how when we still our mind, we start perceiving the energies that are going on through our body. We start perceiving our energetic body. We start perceiving our emotions, our feelings, and much more. Much more. So, what I might have possibly understood, what experience might have possibly showed me so far. So, this is not definite. It might still change, but I'm kind of built a sureness about this. Is that when I stay in that stillness, and I just stay with whatever, with that nothing, let's say, just stay in that nothing, in that void. What happens is that slowly I start to perceive the energies going through my body. And at first there is no concept to them because there is no software. So it's just energy, moving, morphing. But slowly, if I continue to stay there in that space, I am slowly starting to see how a different type of interface is starting to slowly form. A true interface. An interface that starts to translate for me correctly what happens in my body and what happens in the physical reality around me. So my cue here is that I think that if we learn to still down our minds, to detach our awareness from this corrupted interface of this current human mind, I think that if we learn how to stay in that empty space for longer, somehow it seems like a truer, more faithful interface is starting to slowly take place on its own. And reality, it starts to be translated in its correct form. This is my experience so far, although, and so to sum it up, it appears like as awareness learns to stay in that place of emptiness for some time, a correct interface is slowly starting to be installed in the mind. So it's like as we retract our awareness from the mind and we put it here in the middle, in the heart, let's say, this is basically the emptiness, is the heart. So, as awareness stays here in emptiness, what I think it happens is like the corrupted old version of the software is slowly being disinstalled by itself. And a new, or it might not be new, it might be even more ancient. But the correct version, a more correct version of software is slowly being installed, and this one is being disinstalled. The corrupted one is being disinstalled, and this more correct version of the software is being installed. And there seems to be this process going on as much as we are staying here in the emptiness, in the silence within us. So it's an update happening to the software. The software is being updated to a truer and truer version of the software. a software that is capable of correctly translating reality as it is, a software that is having the true names of things, the true symbols correctly associated with the things that exist in the hardware of reality. So in my opinion, there was like symbols and names are far from being the problem here. The problem was the incorrect or corrupted software that was misassociating the symbols with the things. But a true software is able to correctly associate a thing that exists within the hardware, an activity that exists within the hardware, with a symbol, with a representation, and with a name. So this is basically how things can be correctly seen once again as a human being, because we are here in a human body which has a body and a mind. So this is how, through our human being, body and mind, we can see things correctly once again. We don't, like, the mind is far from being faulty. It's just the software was corrupted. It's far from saying that we need to drop our mind or not use our mind. It's correctly using the mind with a correct installed software that is able to correctly translate reality in the way reality actually is.